Welcome to the Encore Audio Archives YouTube channel. I'm Taper Dave, and this is my channel. I've uploaded hundreds of talks here that I've recorded at meetings in West LA, and I've also recorded conventions starting in 2013. I've got a bunch of those up. And Walt and Mary Murray, the original owners of Encore Audio Archives, started the company in the 80s, and Walt recorded Joe and Charlie's and a bunch of stuff down in Vista, California. My sobriety date is June 20th of 1994. I hope you find something you like, so please like and subscribe to my channel and comment down below. If you want to hear something that I don't have or that you don't see, I'll see that I get it. Anyways, take care and have a great day if you want to.
My wonderful sponsor, Arlene!
Thank you, Kim. Arlene, alcoholic. I just figured out today before I came that I'm 5,434 days sober without a drink, 14 years and 11 months sober without a drink, and for a Friday night, that's absolutely incredible. I got to share with you, when I got up at the podium taking a 60-day chip, I looked out at the South Bay Hospital audience and I said, you know, I'm so glad I know that I'm Japanese. And I sat back down, and the old-timer sat, he said, Arlene, I could have told you that. And I looked at him, and I'm going, oh. And that's why I'm here tonight, because, you know, I was telling Joanne to remind myself why I'm an alcoholic. And what I have to remember what I used to do on a Friday night, but I'm going to go back even further. I always started off with how I started, what I did, and how I got here, and what I'm doing today. And I always start from the very, very beginning. My mom and dad were in Oakland, California. They'd been married a year, and Pearl Harbor was bombed, and they were trying to escape, and they were found in Fresno, California, and they were loaded on a bus and taken to Gila River Camp in Arizona. And that's where I was conceived and born. And don't figure out how old I am, please. Anyway, after about 8 months, Dad went to Elyria, Ohio, and got a job there, and we joined, Mom and I joined him in Cleveland. And so consequently, I grew up in Cleveland, Ohio, and I grew up to be an all-American because my mom did not want me to know I was Japanese, and I certainly did not really know that until I got sober. Because what I know today is, because of our fourth step and all that anger that I had against my mother, is that she truly did do the best she could, and that I had 7 wonderful years to be with her and be a human being to her first of all, and then to be a loving daughter. And that's really owed to the program of Alcoholics Anonymous and all of you people that come to these meetings and share and listen and whatnot. Anyway, so here I am in Cleveland, Ohio, and I don't have any friends, but I'm real clean and I'm real fat. Mom made sure I was clean and definitely overfed, because as I grew older, I had to go to Lane Bryant to get my clothing. And I was never called a Jap at school, but I was definitely called Fatty 2x4, can't get through the kitchen door. And I didn't even get a Valentine card. And I used to cry about that, you know, and I still get sort of no Valentine cards. Anyway, no, I get Valentine cards today, believe me. Anyway, all of our belongings, every Sunday night we would have chicken dinner. And Mom would call Grandma and say, well, she'd cry and she'd say, well, I'm going to be there because Grandma was here in California. And so we packed up everything. Finally, shortly after this Sunday night when she said we'll be there, we packed all of our belongings on a U-Haul trailer. And Daddy took us all through the East Coast, and we saw Niagara Falls and all the great sights of the East Coast. And we're coming across country, and the trailer breaks down in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And, you know, Daddy went to the a little phone booth to call, and this man came up, Mr. Cheney, and he said, well, you know, you're not going to find anything open at Tulsa, Oklahoma at this hour. Come home with me. And so we went to his home and stayed that night, and we found our own apartment, and I had to go to school there for about 1 or 2 months. And that was the beginning of my real life, because the kids would play with me, and they would walk me home, and they're so friendly to me, you know? And one day they're all around me, and they say, what are you? And I looked at them and I'm going, I don't know. So I went home and I said, well, Mommy, they're asking me what I am. And I said, Mommy, what do I say? They're asking me what I am. And she goes, oh, just go back and tell them you're a Cleveland Indian, like the baseball team. And so I did. And the last day of school, I got up at very much a podium like this, and the teacher had a globe, and she said, well, Arlene is Japanese, and she showed us where Japan was. And I thought to myself, geez, I'm Japanese, huh? Anyway, and so here we come to California and go to Grandma's house. And Grandma's house is at 36th and Normandy. And I want to tell you, that's really where my real life began, too, because not only in Tulsa, Oklahoma did the kids, were friendly to me. Now they're really friendly to me at 36th and Normandy. I mean, I was going to their house and having lots of fun in the neighborhood. Well, Mom didn't like that. So I had to use Auntie's address. I would take 3 buses and go to this junior high school in Los Angeles. And I'll tell you what, I remember thinking, because by then I joined the aquatics team and all that weight was melting off of me and the boys were looking at me and I thought, wow, what a life I'm going to have here in California. I had not found scotch yet. I also know because of the inventory, if I could have found scotch and soda in Cleveland, Ohio, believe me, I would have had that drink back in Cleveland because it was really something. Is anybody from Cleveland? Oh, okay, no wonder you're laughing so hard. Anyway, Grandma's house was in a real great area, and I'm telling you, Arlene was having lots of fun. I mean, I was here and lying. By then, the lying and the cheating had already set in. I was telling Mommy I was going to Kim's house, and I'd be way across town hanging out with the big girls and going to dances and having fun, They weren't drinking yet, though. But Mom was a school teacher, and Dad was driving her from Los Angeles to Redondo Beach, and so one day they realized rather than commuting all that far, they'll move here. And so we moved, and I remember going down Normandy Avenue near Artesian. There's a dairy there still, and the cows were there, and I thought, my life is going to be different. And I thought, gee, this is open spaces, and Los Angeles was so crowded, and I thought things will be really great here. That was my first geographic. So I went to Gardena High School, and being that alcoholic mind, I always hung out with the girls that I thought were having fun. So what they did is they got pregnant, they got married, and they had the house, the new car, they had everything. And so I thought, what? I want that too. And I was in a bowling alley and smoking my cigarette and drinking my coffee, and I thought, geez, I wonder where the guys are. And the next thing I heard was this voice saying, you sure smoke a lot. And I looked to the left and I saw these barefoot feet with these Hawaiian slippers on. And I looked up and I fell in lust the minute I saw him. This gorgeous Japanese man. I mean, he was just beautiful. And we were together at the hips, and I was in my 12th grade, and he was going to college, and he wanted to finish his degree, and we'd go to his college, and I thought, geez, what are we doing here? And I remember telling him in the car, I go, if you really loved me, you would make love to me. And well, it didn't take long for me to convince him. I walked down the aisle 3 months pregnant with welts around. I had, what is that? Anyway, big welts. I'm just a nervous wreck. Had the baby, and we buying a house, want the house with a white picket fence. And when he's about, a year old, we moved from Los Angeles back here to Manhattan Beach, and we're buying the house. And so it was on a Sunday night, and it was the first rains. And we got a phone call from my in-laws. Their refrigerator had broken down. And so my father, he could fix anything. And so my father and my husband and my 3-year-old, I'd had another baby by then. We didn't go with them. For some godly reason, I didn't go that night. If they were just going to the shop, I would get in the car and go with them. But, I truly believe this is definitely a spiritual thing, because it started raining and they hadn't come home yet. And so I called my girlfriend Marion, and I was hysterical. I said, something has happened. I feel that something has happened. It was 7 o'clock at night. And she said, Arlene, just keep trying to call them, things are going to be okay. I hung up the phone. The next minute I heard the knock at the door. I opened the door, and it was the California Highway Patrol to tell me that my father and 3-year-old son had been killed in an automobile accident. And my 6-month-old baby and I, we're home, and I said to the officer, very cool and calm, I said, Oh, I went into shock. We better go tell my mother. And so we went upstairs and told my mom, and the next thing I really remember is being at the hospital, the doctor's coming towards me, and I asked the doctor in the middle, I said, how is my husband? And he said, we don't expect him to live. And I screamed at the top of my lungs, oh yes, he will. And he is alive today. Because of the 9th step, I made amends with him, and he truly believes that it was all the prayers, that all the relatives, and all the prayers that he's alive today. Anyway, he hadn't found alcohol yet, but he'd gone to Rancho Los Amigos for rehabilitation, and I was crying every day with my 6-month-old baby, and the lady across the way was the manager of the apartment building, and she said, Arlene, you've got to quit feeling sorry for yourself and go to work at this large aerospace company. Her husband was the security guard there. And I said, gee, I don't know. She said, don't worry, I'll watch the baby, you go to work. So I said, all right. And so I went and interviewed, and the first man didn't hire me. And I broke down and cried, and I just couldn't, keep it together. And I went home and I thought to myself, he probably didn't hire me because I cried. I was a wreck. And so I got that brilliant idea, as I always got, if I looked good and sounded good, you're going to like me. So what I did is I put my makeup on and I put that smile on, and I went back for another interview, and he hired me. And I didn't find out until I was in my first year of sobriety that he always knew that I had lost my father and son, and that he thought it would help me. And I'm here to tell you, boy, did it ever help me, because in those days, if you didn't drink at an aerospace company, you were not a part of. And so, and I'd never had a drink before, and so I was still acting like I knew everything, right? And so, big office, we were putting a man on the moon, and it was exciting days, though, I'm telling you. And so we were at this big luncheon, and everybody's drinking, and I'm not drinking. And so I go, well, geez, I guess the guy at the bar, the server asked me, what would you like? And I go, I'll have what she's having, and she's having a martini. And I said, and I had that, and I couldn't drink it. And so somebody said, why don't you try this scotch and soda? And I was to drink that until I got to you in Alcoholics Anonymous. I took that drink, and I remember that feeling, not one, maybe the second drink. It went down, and it took away all those feelings of grief. It just took all that pain away. And what I did is I could act like I was single, I could act like I was fine, and I was acting until I got to Alcoholics Anonymous. 5 years into his coming home, I thought, you know what, and my drinking at the company, I thought, you know what, I need to get away from this company. I need to be a good wife and mother. So we bought a house out in Glendora with trying to get that white picket fence again. And so we moved to Glendora, and within a month, I realized I made the biggest mistake in my life. I had joined the West Covina bowling alley because I had to have that drink. And after I realized what I'd done, I quit-claimed the deed to the house, moved back here, and now I could really drink. Divorced him, and my son, my poor son, thank God of the steps, because what I was doing is I'd leave Keith with my babysitter or the mother and just go party, party, party. Well, 10 years into my drinking, I was developing a bladder or kidney infection, paying the doctor every month to go tell me that, I needed this medicine. He'd give me medicine. And so finally one day I thought to myself, I am not going to pay money to go see him. I'm just going to buy this orange pill. It's called Cystex. And so I bought this. They still sell it today. And so what it does, it helps you, you get better, right? Well, I'm at a bar in Gardena, and I'm drinking my scotch and soda with my right hand and my medicine and water with my left hand. And by 3 o'clock in the morning, I am hospitalized at South Bay Hospital. And I could hardly walk. I couldn't eat. I was absolutely in a mess. The doctor said I had toxic poisoning, and when I got out, I told everybody, don't buy this medicine. This gives you toxic poisoning. That doctor never told me that, alcohol mixed with medicine can create a problem. They just didn't tell you those things. Anyway, a lot about my drinking. I couldn't stand to be alone. I was saying that tonight. I couldn't drink alone. I couldn't smoke alone. I couldn't do anything alone. I had to be with somebody, always somebody. And I've had affairs. I've had men in my life. But I want to tell you, this man, 365 days, he left me. And I'm going to tell you, I got back at him. I got so drunk. I'm driving my brand new Toyota down Carson, and I look at this Union Bank building right there, okay? And I'm driving very carefully, and I look over, and here's this pickup truck at the stop sign, and now I look back, and he's coming straight for me, okay? And I realize he's going to hit me. So what I did, I don't have my seatbelt on, and I know this is God. I didn't have the seatbelt. I braced my arms on the wheel. I put my leg on the brake. He hit the passenger door, bounced me up in the air, and that Toyota and I fell on the cement on the roof. And you know what? The officer came and pulled me out of the car, took me to the curb, and gave me a sobriety test. I couldn't understand why he's giving me a sobriety test. I'm thinking, I didn't say anything. I passed that sobriety test just like that. The officer asked me, well, where would you like to go? You know where I want? Well, do you know where I had him take me? I had him take me to that guy's house, and I said, look what you've done. And I told him what happened. He said, let's take you to the hospital. You need to be x-rayed. But I said to him, look what you've done. It's all your fault. Because I had no idea alcohol was my problem until I got to Alcoholics Anonymous. I really didn't. And for the speakers that come up here and speak and talk about what it was like, I tell you, I have learned that I am definitely an alcoholic. You know, I'm going to quickly go through my drinking, because in 1984 I've now got a girlfriend that's taught me how to drink and really have fun and get the young guys and just really get out there and be wild and crazy like I've always wanted to be. But now I'm getting sick again. You know, I'm going to Italy and Greece, and I've got that kidney or bladder infection, but this time I'm really feeling sick. And so I went to the doctor and I said, you know what, I'm feeling really ill. You're going to have to take my blood. I'm telling the doctor to take my blood. He took my blood. I went back and I'm sitting on the table, and he says to me, as with his legs crossed, he looks up at me and he said, how much do you drink? And I looked at him and I was so offended. No one has ever asked me how much I drink. And I said, I don't know. I don't count. And he said, if you continue drinking, you are going to have cirrhosis of the liver. And I thought to myself, well, I have no idea what cirrhosis is. And I said, what do I have to do? Because I'm going to Europe. You know, I'll do anything you say. Well, you can't drink. I said, fine, I won't drink. You know, so I didn't drink. No problem, I didn't drink. I went back, and now I'm feeling better, and I asked the doctor, how much can I drink? And he said, you can only have 2 glasses of wine a day. I said, no problem. From all the scotch that I could think of and drink, two glasses of wine. So what I would do, I would go into the bar, I would order a glass with ice, I would order the glass of wine, and I would order the glass of water, and I became chemist. I would add the water and the ice, and I would do that at all the bars that I went to. I was just absolutely fine. And so now I'm off to Italy, okay? And all through Italy I'm fine, and now we're on the boat over to Athens, and I'm telling you, I fell in lust again, okay? I'm sorry to say, I really did. Fell in lust again with the Acropolis. And this soccer player, he took me to a huge disco, and I had not had a scotch and soda in so long, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to have just one. Well, you know what, I only did just have one. After that one, I got so wild and crazy, I was dancing, and by the time we got back to the hotel room, I had lost my purse. My purse had all my airline tickets, my money, passport, everything in it. Everything in it. And I'm hysterical. And the soccer player, he slumps down on the bed and he says to me, why do you drink? And I'm sobbing. I go, I don't know. The doctor's asking me why I drink, and now he's talking about drinking. I have no idea it's drinking. Okay, I come back home, and I'm feeling really good. I figured I haven't had a scotch and soda in so long. I'm only drinking 2 glasses of wine, and I have 1 scotch and soda, 2, 3, 4. Now I'm at a bar across from the Alondra Club. It's the Alondra Club is gone now. And I'm in the bar having 5 scotch and sodas with my best sponsor, who always bought as much alcohol I ever wanted. And I'm cold sober. I said, let's go to the back bar and have an after dinner drink. And I'm cold sober. And now the fear is setting in. And I want to tell you, this 12th step of Alcoholics Anonymous, it really, really works, because the lady that I was working with, my office mate, had told this lady, you better go talk to Arlene. She's an alcoholic and she doesn't know it, but she's on this antabuse. Well, I didn't even know what antabuse was until I got to Alcoholics Anonymous. Apparently it makes you throw up if you drink it, or if you drink while you're taking it. Well, I was on an antibiotic. But thank God she got it mixed up, because she became my friend in, probably August of 85 or 84. And now it's December of 84, and we're really good friends. And she comes into my office and she says, Arlene, would you like to put a little New Year's resolution? And I go, something about not drinking. And she said, well, how about sane and sober? I go, oh, I love it. Sane and sober, that's it. And you know what? I still have that paper. That's exactly what I put in there, sane and sober. Because on January 16th, I was in the bar. On January 17th, she was in my office, and I was screaming about some guy I was involved with. And she looked at me and she said, Arlene, would you like to go to a meeting? And I said to her, sure, I'm a secretary, I'll go to the meeting. So I said, listen, don't bother picking me up, I'll meet you at this gas station. So I drove my car to the gas station, and they take me to this meeting, and I'm thinking, boy, it must be some kind of real self-help group, right? So we go along, it's at the neighborhood church in Malaga Cove. Beautiful setting. I hope some of you have been there to know it. Beautiful setting. You walk along the ocean, you go up these stairs, and I got to the balcony, and I saw all these handsome men. I'm telling you, I thought to myself, no wonder I can't find them in the bar. They're in this meeting. And I walked in, and the chairs, every other chair had an ashtray on it, and I was smoking. I thought, boy, this is going to be a great meeting. I can smoke. And I'm looking at all you gorgeous men, and I'm sitting down, and I never heard alcoholic, but I guess the newcomer stood up, and I stood up and said, hi, I'm Arlene, and I sat back down. Now, I don't know what the speakers, if she was a lady or a gentleman, but I do remember hearing the word drinking in their pitch. Drinking. And now that lady that brought me to AA still hadn't told me about alcoholics. She still hadn't told me anything. I guess she knew if she'd have told me anything, I would have said, good for you, I'm not coming back here. Anyway, but what she did is she knew I was willing to listen to her, because she was so much fun. She is so much fun. I told her that I really enjoyed it, and good for you. And she said, well, if you want to come back and they ask you to be of service, you might want to help out. And so the secretary asked me, he said, well, can you get here, Arlene, to set up the chairs? And I thought, oh my God, set up chairs? I go into a bar and my chair is waiting for me, my drink, I'm thinking, okay, I'll help out. Okay. Well, about the third time, he wanted me there like a half an hour before the meeting started. I told him, I said, you know what, you've got to fire me. I can't get here to set up these chairs. He took me to the corner and he said, Arlene, if you keep coming back, you might hear something. And that's all he said, because I couldn't hear anything. My eyes were always glued to the guys and who was here. I was just bouncing all over the place. Anyway, I set the chairs up, and then I got a promotion, and I love to share this because I've had the best promotions here in Alcoholics Anonymous. From setting up chairs, I got promoted to making coffee. And you would say to me, oh, Arlene, that coffee is so good, and hug me, and I was beginning to feel really important, and it was just, the fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous is incredible. Anyway, I'm 11 months sober, and I'm at a dance at the Hawthorne Alano Club, and this guy that I'd known since I was 2 months sober, he was very quiet. I'd go out to coffee with all the men. Hadn't gotten real close with you women yet, okay? And went out to, and I did my thing. I'd met him when I was 2 months sober, and now it's 11 months. Okay, I'm 11 months sober, and and I see him outside the door, and I'm thinking, boy, he's looking pretty good, He was really dressed sharp, and I thought, wow, he's changed. So he came in, and we danced, and we had a lot of fun dancing. And so we went to the coffee bar, and I did my thing. I hadn't worked all the steps yet. I got up on the bar stool, and I crossed my legs, and I rubbed my leg on his leg, and he didn't move. And I thought to myself, you know what? this man is a gentleman. He wants a lady. And so I began to be really the lady that my sponsor was trying to teach me to be. And so I told my sponsor on December 7th, he kissed me and he said, I want to hold you. And I said to him, not tonight, next weekend. So I told my sponsor, and we're in my office, and I told her what happened, and she gives me that dirty look, and she says to me, hold you? Your feelings haven't even moved above your waist yet. And I said, what do you mean? And she told me, and I said, well, geez, and now the program of AA is incredible because that first step talks about honesty. I had to really get honest with myself and realize there was no way that he was just going to hold me. And so I was at my girlfriend's house and I called him up and I said, I've lied to you. There's no way that you're going to hold me. I'm sure we're going to just do our thing, and And he tried to talk me out of it, and I hung up the phone, and I wasn't at my house. He called my house, got the phone number where I'm at, and he called me and he tried to talk. He said, I lied to you, that at midnight it would be another day, and he was going to do that. And I thought, oh, this is really a God-given man. I mean, it's because I thought if I did all the steps and I did everything that was suggested, God was certainly preparing that man for me. Okay, and so 3 dates later, we were having sex. I mean, he had become my God, and I gave my life utterly and completely to that man. And what happened, he proposed on February. I was just a year sober, and he proposed in February, and we got married on his sobriety date, and we got married, went to Las Vegas, and we have the new house and the new car, and it's just fantastic. It's so romantic. I've got roses on my desk every week, and a year into our marriage, he left a message on the machine saying he'd left me forever, wouldn't be back. And I thought to myself, what did I do? What did I do? What did I do? And I kept hitting the button on the machine and playing it over and over and over again, trying to figure out, what did I do? Why is he leaving me? Everything was so perfect. I finally called my sponsor. It was a Friday, and she came over, and some of you might know where she took me that night. She took me to a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. I was absolutely numb because I knew it was all my fault. And I'm here to tell you that because of God and this program, I'm definitely still sober, because I know today that I was that close to drinking with him, because he even told me when I made amends, Arlene, I had to divorce you because you were getting ready to drink with me. And it's amazing. Even today, God seems to know when I need people in my life. He seems to know when I need to be on a panel. He seems to know when I need to be of service, because there's a gentleman here tonight that knows every year at that roundup at South Bay, at the South Bay roundup. I think this year will be the 15th annual roundup. That has definitely kept me busy, because we have so much sobriety here in the whole state of California, but definitely in the South Bay. We started dating again. I got my own apartment. I was so proud. Finally I got my own apartment. I'd never had my own apartment, and I was on the car phone with my sponsor, and I was crying. I'm going, I don't know what I'm going to do. I need to find a place. I want to keep my cat. And she said to me, what do you want, Arlene? I said, I just want a place that I can keep my cat and have a window over the sink. And she said, well, you got to talk to God about it. You got to let God know you got to let God know you want that. Well, I go to this apartment, and I'm having fun talking to the owner, and finally he takes me to this apartment. My apartment, it's a 2-bedroom apartment, windows all over, and I got that apartment with only 1 month's rent, because he wanted just it was a 2-bedroom apartment, but he only wanted one person in there, and I was able to enjoy that apartment and learn how to be alone. Anyway, got that apartment, and my ex and I are now dating, and oh boy, dating. We went on a date, and he's still drinking, okay? And we went to this restaurant in Long Beach, and he come back, and he was sipping on some alcohol. He was sipping on drink, and I go, "What are you doing?" And he said, "I'm detoxing." And I said, "What do you mean detoxing?" He said, "Well, I just can't quit all of a sudden." And I said, "Okay, fine, I'm going to bed." So I went to bed, got up, and he's still in the same position, drinking. And he says to me, "Call the doctor." And I want to tell you, have you ever seen an Asian ambulance driver? I mean, I was in that car taking him to the doctor, and the doctor, it was on a Sunday, and I'm telling the doctor, I said, "I am not going to stay home with him. Take care of him." He says, we get up to the room, he examines him, and he's in the room, and he says, "Well, the doctor says, I can give him a shot to get sober, or we can check into South Bay Hospital for the recovery program." I said, "It's your decision. What do you want to do?" So he says he wants to go to the hospital program, and now I'm really driving like an ambulance driver. I drive to South Bay Hospital, check him in, and you know what the lady says to me? She says to me, "And you will be the outpatient, Arlene." And I'm going, "Me? Why am I?" And she says, "Well, you're the significant other. You have to go with him." I was 2 years sober, and I want to tell you, thank God that I went to the program of Al-Anon, because I had no idea that I was so sick, because I was so codependent. I still wanted that man to take care of me. I had found that God in that first year of sobriety, but after giving it away, it was real hard. And I hear the people that drink, and come back. I sort of hear the same message. When we lose that God that we find in Alcoholics Anonymous, it's hard to get him back. And that's why I try not to say no in Alcoholics Anonymous, because I still remember me. I got drunk in this area. I work with the people that saw me drunk, and now they're seeing me sober, and I'm still here. And it's like, you know what? Geez, I don't want to forget where I came from, because I definitely remember what I was like when I was drinking. Thanks to the program of Al-Anon, I definitely had to work those steps again, and really work those steps. Step one, I had to admit that I was powerless over alcohol, and that my life was unmanageable. I'll tell you what, in sobriety, I had to not only learn that my life was unmanageable about alcohol, about everything, and coming to believe again that a power greater than anything else could restore me to sanity. And that third step, to make a decision and turn my will over to the care of God, as I understood it, took me a long, long time. And I want to tell you, I really, really know that God is with me today. That fourth step, when I realized that I was not the kind of daughter and that blaming my mom for everything that had happened. I blamed her that I didn't know I was Japanese. I blamed her for keeping me fat. I blamed her for not telling me what from right and wrong. And you know what? I was able to make amends with her, and my sponsor said, I thought I'd pick her up and just say, "Mom, I'm sorry," and that would, end it. And she said to me with her big blue eyes, she said, "No, Arlene, you're going to do living amends." And I really did living amends with my mother for 7 years. It's wonderful, I look back and I look at my mom every day when I open my desk drawer and go, "Thanks, Mom," because, I remember her asking me, "Did I make you drink? Was it my fault that you became an alcoholic?" And it really wasn't. My mother died 78 years sober. She never had an ounce of alcohol in her life. And I used to think she needs a drink, Anyway, the fifth step, I remember thinking, I'm not going to tell anybody. I can get around it, because what I would do is I read the book and read the literature, and I had this program that you're coming to, Wired. I thought I could do it by myself. But my sponsor said to me, "Aren't you going to give me a little something?" And I go, "Give you what?" I thought, give you something? She said, "How about a little inventory?" And so when I put that pen in my hand, I could not stop writing. It was like God was saying, "You got to write all this stuff, And when I shared it with her, it's amazing how she would share with me the things that she had done, and it was incredible. For the very first time, somebody was listening to me. Nobody ever listened to me. When I was a child, I was told, "Oh, be quiet, oh, you're dirty." We didn't talk. Here in Alcoholics Anonymous, I can truly be myself, And anyway, after doing that sixth step, that seventh step, it really, really worked, because I'll be honest with you, this is a program of honesty. I still hung on to that lust. I didn't want to let it go. When I was dating my ex, I was going through a lot of pain in sobriety, and I really realized that I had to give that up. And so I just shouted out to God. I said, all right, God, I give it to you. Okay? And you know what? It was gone. Every time I've asked God to remove it, he's always taken it. That 7-step absolutely works. The 8th step and the 9th step, it was just incredible, the amends. Right now, you know, I'm thinking about my son. My son is in Puerto Rico, and that's another thing, the Northridge earthquake. He's a restaurant manager, and he just opened this restaurant at the Northridge Mall, and a week after the grand opening, it was on a January 17th, so I'll never forget it, the earthquake happened. And at that time, he was living in North Hollywood, and I had told him, I'd watched him and another co-worker in this apartment building playing pool, and I said, you know, Keith, why don't you move to Northridge, to this Northridge Meadows? It's closer. You'll be closer to work, and you won't have to commute so far. No, Mom, my son likes to party. He said, no, Mom, I like living in North Hollywood. So I said, fine. So anyway, the earthquake happened, and as some of you might know, the Northridge Meadows collapsed, and I want to tell you, my son could have lived in that apartment building because that coworker was killed in that collapse. And I truly believe God is really, it's just been incredible how God has been so kind to me, because I don't know what I would have done if I would have lost another son, you know. Anyway, he's over there and I'm over here, and you know, because I stay sober, my granddaughter is going to be she's about 18 months almost old, and because I have stayed sober, I was able to be there for her birth, for her 5 months old, for her 1-year birthday, you know, and if I hadn't done what you're suggested here, I could have missed all of this. And I've had so much fun here in Alcoholics Anonymous. I have had more fun in sobriety than I could have ever had out there. All I ever did out there in the bars was coming in, make sure my bartender was there, make sure that my drinks, you know, it was all about drinking. Here in Alcoholics Anonymous, it's like, I'm happy to see Casey and the women, and, you know, it's like, and what are we going to do out? It's life. It's called life here. I thought I was living with that scotch and soda, but all I would do, I was killing myself. Anyway, you know, I want to share with you what I have done here in Alcoholics Anonymous. I was 5 years sober, and a sponsee had moved to Seattle, Washington, and, you know, we were working the steps via the phone, long distance, and she said, you know, Arlene, why don't you come up here to Seattle? Alcoholics Anonymous is celebrating the international birthday up there. And I said, oh, that'd be fun. So I flew into Seattle, and I'm telling you, I went to my first international at 5 years sober, and what an experience. It was the first time that I had ever, because, you know, I'd go to bars and make sure that I was the only Asian there, because I always get the best attention. The guys were always buying me a drink, and a little of that thing comes to Alcoholics Anonymous. I go into AA meetings and I go, are there going to be other Asians here, or am I going to be the only one? And here I go to the international, and every color of the world is there, you know. And then 5 years later, I went to San Diego, and by then it was really a joy, because I had worked the program of Al-Anon, and now it's like, you know, it's so much here in the fellowship of 12-step recovery and Alcoholics Anonymous and Al-Anon that there's just so much life. And the international now is coming up here in Minneapolis. Now, I can't afford to go there this year, because I am going to Puerto Rico again, and this is another God story, okay? I like to have fun on New Year's Eve, okay? I always like to go out and celebrate sobriety with my sober girlfriends. Well, there's not much going on this year for New Year's, okay? I don't know why. LA Central, there's just not a lot of events happening. And I couldn't get a ticket to Puerto Rico. I really wanted to be with my son and family for, you know, bringing in the year 2000. Well, I'd made up my mind. You know, there's a saying we hear in a saying that we say in Alcoholics Anonymous: let go and let God. Well, once I had let go that I'm not coming to Puerto Rico, I'm reading the LA Times a few Sundays ago, and I see an ad saying San Juan, $409 under cheap seats. So I called them up. Make a long story short, this woman worked with me for 20 minutes, got me a ticket on nonstop to Puerto Rico at a discounted price. The kids are going to pay half of it. Leaving on nonstop December 21st, coming back on January 6th $32,000. And I dropped to my knees and I said, thank you, God, thank you. One more time he had to remind me, if I let go and trust in him. I want to tell you also, share with you how I found God. You always talked about God, the speakers that would get up here, and I'm going, I got to get this God. I got to get this God. And so my sponsor got mad at me because I told her I was at a detox center and this guy was, making eyes at me, and I took him home with me. I mean, he knew me when I was drinking, so he was getting sober. So I told her about it, and she was screaming at me, and she says, what are you doing? Anyway, so she hung up the phone, and now I'm thinking she loves me. She's screaming at me and telling me what's right and wrong. And so that morning, she calls me about 6 o'clock in the morning, and she says, bring your book, and we're going to go to bring your lunch, and we're going to go to the park. So we went to Pollywog Park, and we're sitting on the bench, and we're laughing, and then we get up, and she looks at this dandelion, and the fuzz is coming off of it. And she says, look, Arlene, that's God's breath. And I said, I have got God now. I didn't know what you meant by God. I had to feel it and see it. And, that was my first feeling of God. And I want to tell you, from that day to this day forward, I know where God is now. And if I forget that he's listening to me, he knows exactly what I'm doing. He knows, when I do something like my mouth gets me still in a lot of problems, but now I'm able to go, Arlene, you had no business saying that. And I'm able to go back to the person that I might have offended or whatnot and go, you know what, please excuse me, or I apologize or whatever. Because you know what, if I don't do the things that are suggested here in Alcoholics Anonymous, I'll probably drink and not be able to share the 12th step, It's time for me to stop. I'm just so glad I was able to be with you, because I've never spoken at this meeting, and tell God and all of you that Alcoholics Anonymous has saved my life, and thank God for everything that he's given me, and I hope we all keep coming back. And with that, that's it. Thanks so much.
Sorry to interrupt your viewing. Taper Dave here. Just wanted to take a second to ask you to like and subscribe to my channel. Let me know if you like what you're listening. I've got some very good talks here, and this one's a great one. Just curious, do you think this is better than Zoom? Tell me what you think. Okay, this is how I prepare my drone for launching. I like to do it inside the cab of my truck so I'm not standing outside in the weather. To install the joysticks for control, up and down, right and left, powered on. I have an Android phone that I use to connect it to the drone with. And it's actually controlled through the iPhone, through an app. Oops, wrong way. It's actually controlled through the iPhone, or through this Android phone, through the app. It's actually controlled through the Android phone, through an app, and you connect it through this short connection right here.
Remote control connected.
Remote control's connected. So I pull out the drone. I have to extend the legs. Long legs extended first, then the short legs. Remove the gimbal protector. Set that aside, then power it on one short burst and one long burst. I lay it down. So I have to go to calibrate. So the drone's not connected yet. It shows you here as this drone gets disconnected, even though the remote's powered on. So the drone has to establish it's connected. So I go into the app to calibration mode. First I'll calibrate the remote controller. Start calibration. out, in, oop, out, in, up, down, and then this little wheel is to control the gimbal. So it's calibrated. Go to gimbal calibration, start calibration, and then it calibrates the gimbal. I don't know if that shows up. The gimbal's moving all over the place. Changes, you can see it on the video. And I'm calibrated to take off. It's acquired 7 satellites at the moment. There are 26 satellites up in the sky, which it has to acquire before you can take off. So it's connected. It's got enough satellites. This is white. I can go to press this little arrow button, swipe right to take off, and it would start the motors if I slid this to the right, but I'll wait till I get outside. Don't want to do it inside.